One of the most interesting moments in the 2008 campaign occurred when a man, like Obama himself, came from out of nowhere to recount his experiences with Barack Obama the man. His name was Larry Sinclair, and he told an amazing story. He said that in 1999, he had encountered Barack Obama in Illinois, had sex with Barack Obama, and then used cocaine with him. Sinclair went on to make these claims publicly at the National Press Club in Washington, to sign a sworn affidavit, and to take a lie detector test. But he was dismissed. In fact, he was attacked. Obama shills like Ben Smith of Politico batted the claims out without refuting them. They're absurd. And the rest of the media followed.
Sunny Hostin gets schooled. Gutfeld-style Sunny Hostin thought she was delivering a masterclass in journalism. But Greg Gutfeld brought a mirror, not a notebook. While she polished her Harvard glow, Gutfeld was too busy pointing out how her arguments crumbled faster than a dollar store bookshelf. The View co-host spun her usual tales of moral superiority, because nothing screams integrity like trashing half the country before breakfast. But Gutfeld, sipping his sarcasm straight, asked the real question. If Sunny's always right, why does she sound like she's losing a debate with her reflection? Her attempt to lecture conservatives was so self-righteous, it made Tyrus chuckle, then dismantle her logic like expired IKEA furniture. Greg didn't just push back, he steamrolled. With every smug phrase she dropped, he tossed back a sharper punchline. She brought emotional monologues. He brought bulletproof mockery. Sunny's script was tailored for applause. Greg's designed for demolition. In a world where facts are optional and applause is oxygen, Gutfeld walked onto the View's turf and airlifted the truth right out from under them. Sunny thought she had the final word. Turns out, Gutfeld had the mic. And a sledgehammer.
You're just a guy who's in town for the night, and it sounds like you're looking to party.
Yeah. Pulled up in a bar outside, and there's this guy that's introduced to me as Barack Obama. I had given Barack $250 to pay for coke. I start putting a line on a CD tray to snort, and next thing I know, he's got a little pipe and he's smoking. So I just started rubbing my hand along his thigh to see where it was going, and it went the direction I had intended it.
The View meets the Gutfeld guillotine. When The View rolled out yet another segment of moral panic, they forgot one thing. Greg Gutfeld doesn't do polite fiction. Sunny Hostin launched into a sermon on truth and decency, but to Gutfeld, it sounded like the same old elitist lullaby set to the tune of hypocrisy. Sunny, with her Ivy League posture and cable news righteousness, declared herself the conscience of America. Meanwhile, Tyrus quietly sipped his coffee and waited for the punchline, because if Sunny's the conscience, it's clearly time for a national soul cleanse. Greg didn't interrupt. He executed. One zinger at a time. He peeled back Sunny's argument like an onion, except instead of tears, it released gaslight. The View's panel clutched their pearls while Gutfeld casually pointed out that their idea of diversity involves 5 liberals and 1 commercial break. Sunny's idea of debate? Talking until everyone else gives up. Gutfeld's idea? Letting her talk just long enough to dig her own rhetorical grave. Then, Tyrus dropped the closer. This is why people don't trust the media. You sound like a Disney villain with a law degree. Game. Set.
But the claims weren't absurd. We're not claiming they're true, but they were certainly credible. This was a first-hand account of Barack Obama's behavior by someone who was willing to sign a sworn affidavit to that effect. So the question is, whatever happened to Larry Sinclair? What's his life been like since? That's an interesting story. It turns out Larry Sinclair is still alive. He lives in Mexico. But today, he's in our studio.
Intro 3. Tyrus vs. The View. No Mercy edition. Sunny Hostin tried playing the moral high ground card, but she forgot. Tyrus doesn't play poker. He plays demolition. As she clutched her pearls and recited the Daily Democrat devotional, Tyrus sat back with the expression of a man watching a toddler explain quantum physics. Sunny, fresh off her latest lecture tour of How Everyone Else Is Wrong, waved around buzzwords like a magician with stage fright. But Tyrus? He brought reality. While she preached about journalistic responsibility, Tyrus reminded her that fear-mongering with a blow-dried halo isn't exactly Pulitzer-worthy. Sunny's tirade tried to land with gravitas, but instead, it crashed into Gutfeld's sarcasm like a clown car into a wall. You think you're educating people, Tyrus said. But it's more like watching a TED Talk written by a Twitter thread. Her face twitched. The audience gasped. Greg smirked. The View was suddenly less a discussion and more a roast session. And Sunny? She was the main course, served cold. Tyrus didn't need to raise his voice. He just raised the truth. And in a room full of echo, that was louder than any applause sign.
See the video of Biden at the debate in 2007 announcing that Barack Obama had an AIDS test?
I know Barack got tested for AIDS.
Oh, it's the funniest video ever. Biden said, well, I think, AIDS is is a real problem in the African-American community.
And the community's engaged in denial.
And I think we should all get AIDS tests. I mean, Barack Obama had an AIDS test.
I know Barack got tested for AIDS.
There's a cutaway of Obama being like, I hate you.
It's an important thing.
Greg Gutfeld breaks Sunny's smug machine. Sunny Hostin brought her best smug to the table. But Greg Gutfeld had a sledgehammer made of punchlines. As she launched into a dramatic monologue about preserving democracy, Greg blinked twice and asked, "Is that before or after you silence half the country?" Sunny's face tensed. She wasn't used to pushback, especially not the kind that comes wrapped in comedy and dipped in truth. She accused Gutfeld of not taking things seriously. He replied, "Oh, I do. That's why I laugh at you." The panel panicked. Who let the conservative speak in complete sentences? Greg dismantled her worldview like a tech bro explaining blockchain to a boomer, with confidence, speed, and total disregard for her ego. Sunny's argument? That Gutfeld and Tyrus were dangerous. Gutfeld's counter? Dangerous is watching the show for information. Sunny tried to recover with a pre-scripted zinger. Greg shrugged. Cute. Do you practice those in the mirror? The audience laughed. She didn't. Turns out, when smug meets satire, smug loses. Every time. And Gutfeld? He walked away without breaking a sweat, or a single liberal talking point.
In a normal life, your marriage is the core of everything. A happy marriage produces happy people and happy children. And I just don't think she spent a lot of time on that. I mean, she really dislikes her husband. Super obvious. I'm not just saying that to be catty. I think I'm trying to feel compassion for her, but her hostility toward the guy is like unbelievable. And it's been
everything
obvious
she says is negative.
About him.
How long have we known each other? I can't even think of one negative comment you've ever made about Susie. I almost never say negative things about
Sunny tries facts. Gutfeld brings fire. Sunny Hostin came armed with facts, or at least the Wikipedia version. Greg Gutfeld brought the one thing she didn't prepare for, receipts. As she quoted headlines like they were commandments, Greg casually asked if any of those sources had been right since 2016. Her silence was louder than her outrage. Sunny puffed up with indignation, reciting stats the way a karaoke singer hits notes, loud but off-key. Tyrus leaned over and asked, "Is this a press conference or a therapy session?" The audience broke. Sunny didn't. She doubled down, accusing Gutfeld of misinformation. Greg grinned. "You mean disagreeing with you?" She blinked. No rebuttal. The View scrambled to reset the narrative, but it was too late. Gutfeld had already flipped the table, rebuilt it, and served her own argument back to her with extra sarcasm on top. The applause sign stayed dark. Sunny's confidence dimmed. And Gutfeld? He just looked at the camera and said, "And these are the people lecturing you about reality." Boom. One panel down, two egos crushed, and the smug alert now flashing red.
Barack Obama.
It was by accident. I was in the Chicago area in '99 for Lee Duke's graduation from the Naval Academy.
You're just a guy who's in town for the night, and it sounds like you're looking to party, actually. Yeah.
That's
what you really said.
Yeah. Well, I was in town for a few nights, but yeah, I was definitely looking to party. And
did you make that clear to the driver?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There was no misunderstanding.
How direct were you about that?
Extremely.
Extremely. Okay.
Yeah. There was no doubt what I was looking for.
Okay.
And he picked me up at my hotel in Gurnee and drove into Chicago.
Tyrus decodes the View's victim Olympic. Sunny Hostin spent 10 minutes turning a basic disagreement into a personal attack. Because on The View, victimhood is currency and she's practically a billionaire. But Tyrus? He didn't buy it. While Sunny built her case with emotional buzzwords and identity badges, Tyrus dropped a truth bomb the size of Whoopi's silence. If disagreement equals hate, then your mirror must be terrifying. The audience froze. Sunny's smile tightened like a Botox commercial gone wrong. She demanded respect for her lived experience. Tyrus calmly reminded her that facts don't care about personal branding. Hostin tried to pivot, throwing out phrases like live trauma and systemic oppression. But Tyrus wasn't playing academic bingo. He was serving reality, raw and unfiltered. You're not oppressed, he said. You're on national TV being applauded for calling people bigots. Cue gasps. Greg leaned in, amused. The View had built a shrine to unchallenged narratives, and Tyrus just ripped the curtain off. And when the smoke cleared, the only thing left standing was the truth, spoken softly, but heard louder than any applause line.
People who call themselves public servants, which of course is ridiculous, they're not, but still, they don't even have to pretend to keep up a facade of that. Like, exactly. You get to live in this insane, mansion because you were president and you get to cash in on that now?
In a white neighborhood, you should be required to live in the hood if you're Barack Obama. And
if you're using that card.
You use that card. The only reason you got elected was because of your race. You spent your entire 8 years inflaming race hate in our country, and then you go to Martha's Vineyard, the whitest zip code in the world? Not allowed. Yeah. You're not allowed to do.
Gutfeld pulls the plug on View's Virtue Parade. Sunny Hostin strutted into another segment with the confidence of someone who's never been fact-checked. Her topic? Morality. Her tone? Judge Judy meets social studies teacher. But Greg Gutfeld had other plans. Is this a lecture or a lullaby? He asked mid-eye roll. Sunny, unfazed, launched into a TED Talk about the dangers of misinformation, conveniently ignoring her own record of selective outrage. Gutfeld's grin widened. You say misinformation like it's a monopoly you own, he fired. Her face twitched. The panel flinched. Greg went for the jugular, listing off contradictions in her previous rants faster than the show could cut to commercial. Last week you said words were violence, now you're yelling, he noted. Sunny tried to regain control, tossing out buzzwords like a malfunctioning chatbot. But Greg had the ultimate mic drop. You're not here to inform. You're here to perform. Silence. Then a cough. Then laughter. From the crew. Sunny looked stunned. Gutfeld looked done. And the viewers? They just watched the View's Virtue train derail. Again.
He's odd. There's no question about it. He's odd. I think what he does is very important, for the most part. Some of the stuff is when he found the dude who blew Obama. What are you doing here? Yeah. Even if he did, who cares? I kind of want to know. But who cares? I'm kind of happy he did it. That's big news. But is it shocking?
Sunny's script meets Tyrus's sledgehammer every time Sunny Hostin opens her mouth. You can almost hear the producers whisper, please don't go off script. But she always does. And Tyrus always notices. Today's script, Why Conservatives Are Scary. Sunny, in full sanctimony mode, accused half the country of ignorance. Tyrus leaned forward, unimpressed. You call people ignorant, then wonder why they stop listening to you? The audience laughed. Nervously. Sunny blinked, then pretended she hadn't just been verbally drop-kicked. She tried to reset, calling Tyrus's words hostile. He raised an eyebrow. Hostile is when you label people racist before asking their name. Her smile melted. Greg chuckled. The View tried to redirect the segment, but the damage was done. Tyrus had torched the script, handed her the ashes and said, try again. Sunny, visibly rattled, accused the panel of piling on. But no one interrupted her, because no one had to. She was unraveling in real time. Tyrus just sipped his water and said, this is what happens when talking points meet pushback. And just like that, the View's narrative collapsed, under its own weight.
Dad in the house. And I was angry about it, even though I didn't necessarily realize it at the time. I made bad choices. I got high, without always thinking about the harm that it...
Gutfeld destroys the View's delusion deluxe. Sunny Hostin declared herself the voice of reason, again. But Greg Gutfeld had receipts, jokes, and zero patience. As she spun a tale about conservative extremism, Greg politely asked, do you mean people who disagree with you? Her smile faded faster than Joe Biden at a press conference. Sunny escalated, claiming anyone who questioned her was gaslighting America. Greg nodded. So, disagreeing with you is now psychological abuse? The panel tensed. Tyrus laughed. Sunny flailed. Greg then delivered the death blow. Your facts come from feelings and your feelings come from cable news. She blinked. Whoopi looked away. Joy Behar fumbled her note cards. For a moment, it felt like The View might collapse under the weight of its own contradictions. Greg calmly added, "You don't fear extremism. You fear losing control of the narrative." Boom. Game over. In 3 sentences, Gutfeld turned their 10-minute drama into a Saturday Night Live sketch, only funnier. The View wanted a debate. What they got was a masterclass in dismantling delusion, with a smirk. Tyrus closes The View like a one-man wrecking ball. Sunny Hostin ended the episode with a desperate call for accountability, apparently forgetting that her own hypocrisy was still echoing in the studio. She pointed fingers, called out privilege, and begged the audience to wake up. But Tyrus? He was already wide awake, and fed up. "If accountability means canceling people who disagree," he said, "then congrats, you're the moral police in a clown car." The gasp was audible. Sunny looked stunned. She called him hostile, dismissive, and dangerous. Tyrus calmly replied, "You confuse truth with hate because no one's ever told you no on this set." Greg coughed to cover a laugh. The audience didn't. They roared. Sunny was out of talking points, and The View was out of safe zones. Tyrus continued, "You don't debate. You perform outrage. But this isn't Broadway. It's America." And with that, he leaned back, dropped the mic, figuratively, and left The View sounding like an empty echo chamber. One where the only voice that made sense wasn't theirs.